All right. Awesome. Okay, I think it's fully set up now. All right, so welcome to the class, everybody. This is a Foraging 101 class. So basically, we're going to go over why people forage, the respect of the land, the people, and ourselves while we're foraging. We're going to talk about safety when you're out foraging, and identification of plants and fungi in the field. I'm going to go over some tips while out in the field, processing your forage, the storage of the processing of your forage, and a few other tidbits, maybe some anecdotes and some examples. So my name is Gabby Chai. I am in Alaska. This is where I live, Palmer, Alaska. Some of the people that are on live with us are also Alaskan or live here. And other people from all around should be joining. We've got a California in the house. I have been foraging for a long time. I guess my roots go back far with the foraging because my father was a fisherman. So in a way, like our whole subsistence depended on his forage to survive. That was, my mom used to say that fish was our bread and butter. But as far as foraging like plants and fungi, my mom was an excellent gardener and cook, but like in my immediate family, we didn't do a lot of foraging. There was a lot of gardening happening, but not really foraging. The only one forage example I can remember from my childhood was my Italian American grandmother used to forage every spring the dandelion greens and make a soup out of it for Easter. So that was in like Bridgeport, Connecticut. So that was pretty much it. I got into foraging. I was very connected with nature as a child. I was always outside. I grew up in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, and it's a very it was and it is like a very it's a natural environment. I wouldn't say that it's rural. It's not. It's Cape Cod, but there's a lot of nature there. So nature's been a big part of my life since I was born. But the foraging started more, I'd say, like maybe enjoying the outdoors like more often in college, University of Vermont, and then in New York City, I started to get really into foraging because I think I felt so disconnected from nature living in the city that I was just latching onto anything. And one of the first things that I would forage up there was the Queen Anne's lace, which grows like in the cement sidewalk. A lot of people, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this plant, but it is a natural birth control and it's a non-hormonal birth control. The tincture has to be made correctly for it to function, but it basically makes the womb slippery. And I just thought that was the bee's knees. I had a lot of issues with hormonal birth control in my like late teens, early 20s. And when I learned about Queen Anne's lace, I was like, wow, that's amazing. The fact that it grows in the inner city where there's like so much, so many people that could utilize this herb, that was like a huge light bulb went off in my head. I also sold seafood to restaurants in New York City, and I noticed that some of the most interesting restaurants that I sold to would have like wild mushrooms and stuff like ramps, wild onions on their menus. And a lot of the seasonal chefs were really like tuned in with the forage coming from the Catskills and stuff. So that was kind of like a foray into it. So I was selling fish in New York, but living in Rhode Island, and I was like foraging around where I lived. And then it just like built up and just was like built over time. I eventually stopped doing the seafood and it got like more into the plants and fungi. And yeah, over the years, I've foraged in New England, I foraged in California, and I've foraged in a way even in South America. But most of the medicinals and edibles I've done in North America, South America and Mexico. So today, let's talk about why people forage. So there's a lot of different reasons you can forage, obviously for edibles like mushrooms. There's let's see, I guess I could start with well, it's a little confusing to do both, but let me try here. So people forage for medicinal purposes. They forage for edibles, for subsistence. Up here in Alaska, foraging is huge, especially like we think of foraging mostly like in the summer and fall. In the summer, there's like all different kinds of herbs and flowers to forage here. In the fall, it switches over, like a lot of it switches over to like the fungi that are growing, and that kind of goes in waves of peak ripeness. So there'll be Actually, it starts in like the early summer here with the morel mushrooms. And then as it goes into summer, we start to see the boletes pop up. There's polypores here year round. But yeah, in the fall, it will be more like the boletes and then the Amanita muscaria, which a lot of people are very curious about these days. And I will get more into foraging Amanita and the processing of mushroom forage. So people forage psychoactive mushrooms. They will go to certain places, certain times of year, and get the psilocybe azarescens, psilocybe cyanescens, people, and so many others. I mean, in down south in the United States, even cubensis grow wild in the cow fields. There's so many varieties of psilocybin mushrooms to forage in woody areas. Some are dung loving. So that's just like a whole vast array. We do have psychoactive psilocybin mushrooms in Alaska, but they're mostly in Southeast Alaska. Foraging for just like learning about nature and your environment where you live. Foraging for photography is very popular. I've noticed I tend to take a lot more pictures of the mushrooms than the herbs, but I did in the fruits and whatnot. But and then people forage to make art projects. People forage to let's see here. Sorry, oopsie. Here we go. Okay, Chris is back. Okay, so foraging to make art projects, like you can forage leaves and bark and, do all kinds of stuff. There is just for like connecting with the land, dyeing fabric, especially with like berries and mushrooms. There's a lot of different colors that you can get from nature for dyeing. And it just like beats scrolling through the social media feeds, like getting outside and, getting those positive endorphins that you get from not only being in nature, but like finding things. Like it is a very old neural pathway. It's ancestral that you go out and you look around and find stuff. And when you recognize, identify, and forage something, it sets off like deep satisfaction that comes from many, many thousands of years of being human, because all of our ancestors were hunter-gatherers and foragers. So let's see. One of the aspects that's really important in foraging that you've probably heard of if you've done any foraging, or if you are a forager, is like an attitude of gratitude and respect when foraging. So in the Native American traditions, a lot of times people will like leave an offering for their forage. Like there's a book called Braiding Sweetgrass. Can't remember off the top of my head her name. I have it in my library, but her book is like it's like a story of her life of foraging and growing up with her daughter and her raising her daughters foraging and leaving offerings. Like the cardinal herbs that are left as offerings. Tobacco is a really big one. So some people leave an offering of tobacco, like at the base of a tree, if they're going to harvest chaga, or some other offering. Some people will like pull out some of their hair and leave it on the ground. I think the most important thing is to leave an attitude of gratitude where you are. And then to take the time to like learn about what you're foraging, so that you're not like just taking a bunch of stuff out of nature and like leaving it in your car to rot. If you do happen to, be bestowed with a very large, abundant forage of amazing stuff, it's always good to like share with your community, especially with elders who can't necessarily get out there and do it themselves. anymore, but that appreciate those fruits of the earth, and just like sharing with your friends and family, and joining together and doing that. So harvesting seasonally is an important part of respecting the land. A good example of this up here in Alaska is like the Devil's Club. So some people use, when you're foraging, there are like different parts of the plant that have different like amounts of alkaloids and indoles and basically medicinal elements in them. And this is what I mean about really like learning about the plants that you're interested in foraging, and also the plants that grow in your environment, and how to harvest at peak ripeness or how to harvest seasonally. So like the Devil's Club, for example, you can forage in the spring. You can harvest the buds and you can make like a pesto out of it. You can like eat the buds. Before the buds start, you can harvest the plant stalks for the Cambrian layer, the part in between. It's the inner layer of the bark. And before we get to the point where it has buds and like leaves coming onto it, would be a good time to harvest the root. Now, harvesting the root of any plant is going to kill the plant. So you wouldn't want to harvest the root of anything that is like, that's not super duper abundant. I have a friend who harvests Devil's Club up here. It's a pretty tough plant to forage because it's very spiky and it's not very agreeable. You have to really know what you're doing, or you can get like spiked a lot. And like I said, there's like a seasonality to the peak ripeness and what parts of the plant you would use at what times. But the Devil's Club is an absolutely amazing plant that's indigenous to Alaska and has been used in Native American medicine here for millennia. So when another part of like respecting the land would be like if you forage some mushrooms and there's like parts of it that you're not going to use, or there's like bugs on it or something, like throwing that stuff back outside, like instead of into your trash can, just like returning it to the earth. Parts of mushrooms will actually decompose on the forest floor and like regrow in more years. You can grow a mushroom from what's called a clone, which is just a piece of a mushroom. So it's really important to like put those natural things like back outside. I know like here we've always had a compost pile, but like here we haven't yet. Just because of where we live, there's a lot of wild animals around here. And so composting like all our food when we don't have a proper structure for it and whatnot is difficult up here. Like in California, it wasn't as like scary or dangerous. Like we literally just threw it outside for the skunks and stuff. But here it's a little different. So, but that stuff that's like just like plant matter and like mushroom matter, like it really should just go back outside if you're not going to be processing it. So another thing about respecting the land and respecting your neighbors and stuff is to like stay away from private property. Obviously, if it's posted, you shouldn't go in there. You can get in big trouble for doing that. You can get hurt. Just don't do that. And I recommend you don't from personal experience. And you should also try to be mindful of like very public areas where people go to view nature. If you're foraging in like public parks where like people go at times of year to like go view the amanita or to like look at the turkey tails growing up and down the trees, it may not be like the best place to forage because a lot of people are going there to like enjoy those things and connect with nature. So make good choices with that and like be mindful of like your fellow human beings and stuff. Another way of foraging is gleaning. So gleaning is like when a farmer has a crop and then after they harvest their crop, they have like potatoes left over or whatever it is they're farming, they have like leftover fruits or like vegetables and stuff to glean. So gleaning is another type of foraging. So if you're going to do gleaning, it's always important to like wait till the crop is harvested and then like ask the farmer if you can glean. A lot of farmers like don't mind at all. They'll say like, yeah, go for it. We don't want it to waste. And you can go get like a ton of potatoes or like whatever it is. Lemons, if you're in California, citrus. So in like abandoned, citrus places and stuff, but always good to like stay off private property and like ask. So yeah, the best medicine people that forage, like they know their plants really well. It takes time to learn. So take the time. You can always just take a little bit of something and like study it, or you can take a picture. You can take some pictures of something and study, or just take one. You don't have to take like a whole bunch of stuff. And I've learned this the hard way too. Like I've had like blunders of foraging. So I am imparting this on you so that you don't have to make as many blunders, but blunders do happen and you don't have to be like ashamed of it or anything. You live and learn. So some people will sit, like when they're learning about a plant or a tree, a type of tree or a type of plant spirit, they'll sit out in the woods with that one plant or that one tree for days until the plant or tree, this is like a very shamanic way of like communicating with the land. They'll sit with a certain plant for days and until the plant starts to speak to them. So a great author for stuff like that would be Ed Cowan. He wrote a plant spirit medicine book. Another plant, and then Carlos Castaneda, which some of you may know, he's an amazing author who wrote about like the northern Mexico shamanism. And he does talk about like plant shamanism. So would look at those for like learning about plant spirits. There's Pamela, I can't remember her name right now. You can always we can catch up later for like more, because I wasn't really going to add those plant spirit books in, but they are important for foraging, the plant spirit shamanism books. But yeah, it's another reason to forage, is to connect with plants and to talk with plants. There's a woman on Instagram named Y Rock. She's an amazing plant communicator. So she would be a great resource. GWAIROCH. She's incredible. Absolutely love her. She's in like Sweden or Finland or something, a northern place. But she knows a lot about talking with plants. So safety, going on the woods, prepared for the woods that you're going out in. So around here in Alaska, we have like large animals and you have to be careful. Like I would not go out there without a gun personally by myself. Usually I go with my husband, but people go with their friend or like someone you trust. And like I have been trained in gun safety. I still don't really like to be the one carrying the gun. It's like not my cup of tea, but if it came down to it, like I have a gun that would kill a bear. I'm not saying I want to kill a bear. I definitely don't want to kill a bear, but if a bear is eating my skull, I'm going to want to have a gun. Some people just go with bear spray. That's a personal choice. We prefer the 10 millimeter, but you really, really, really have to be careful with guns. So training or going with a friend who knows. And if you're not going to take a gun, bringing bear spray and training yourself with bear spray, and like always going with a friend. There's people that go here, and I go by myself too. But when I'm out there, like I said, I bring the 10 and I am like singing in the woods, making a lot of noise. Once in a while, I'll be like, not be prepared, and I'll go out there without a gun or anything. And I will make a lot of noise when I'm out there, but I really don't do that often because it's not safe. So just be really careful. But I do know like elders around here that like go out and they don't bring anything, they just go out and they're good with that. So it's a personal choice. But if you watch enough like videos and stuff, and like my brother's friend got attacked by a bear, like it's really hard to escape from a bear. If you run, they're much faster. They can climb trees. And they're around here, and certain times of year, like they're around. Like in the winter, no, but like this time of year right now, they're looking for food. There's tons of them in the Kenai. Like here in the valley, there's not as many, but I would still be really careful. There's often like a lot of moose. So just be like really careful. I run into moose a lot out there, and like for the most part, my dogs, and in the winter too. For the most part, like my dogs will listen to me now about moose, but I do get nervous that like they're gonna like chase the moose and bring it back to me. But for the most part, I've like trained them. They can hear it in my voice now, like when they need to like really listen because of a moose. But yeah, training your dog, stuff like that. Paying close attention to your surroundings. Like when you're out there, it's not a time to be, honestly, I would not run through the forest on a trail with headphones on in Alaska. Like maybe in like Sonoma County, California. But even like when you get into like Tahoe and stuff, there's bears. Like Washington, there's bears. Like, anyway, I am just probably repeating myself, but like if you're going fast in the woods, running, biking, those are a lot of times the people that get attacked by bears. So like make good choices about like where you do your exercising, wearing headphones, like just be super alert. Like if I make a video or if I'm taking pictures out in the woods, like, you know, I try to just like check back in with my surroundings like often. So another thing about safety and foraging is like doing a lot of research about what you're foraging. There are highly toxic stuff in nature, like mushrooms and plants that like can actually really make you sick. I'm going to do the slideshow afterwards because it's multitasking. I'm not like that great at Zoom yet to be able to do that. But if you're taking stuff out of the forest to consume or to give to other people, you need to be so sure, 100% sure, they say, that it is what you think it is. And that's by going by taste, by smell, well, taste isn't going to be your first line of defense, like visual, top side of a mushroom, underside, what it's growing near, like what are the companion plants around it, like what is the environment, does it fit the certain description? There are always outliers, but even those, like it's good to just be really careful, because it would be terrible to make yourself sick, but it would be even worse to make someone else sick. So another thing that I do as a practice is when I take something out of the forest, if I'm going to give it to other people, I always eat it first. I always try it first. All the products you see here, I've taken them myself. I don't give stuff to other people that I have not consumed myself. Some people say there are no expert mycologists because the field of mycology is so complex. It's ever changing. There are so many mushrooms that have not yet been discovered. I really believe, and like, I may be wrong, but like sometimes I see things that I think are like hybrids of mushrooms, and it could be possible, you know, nature's constantly evolving. And so there can be a mushroom, like one clue would be like if a mushroom, well, here's an example. We used to forage candy caps in Sonoma County under the oak trees. They like to grow around blackberries and oak. Those would be like some of the companion plants in the leaf litter. And up here, there's a lot of lactarius mushrooms. It's like the same genus of mushroom. And there's a lot of them that look just like candy caps, but they even snap like chalk, like a candy cap, and they lactate like a candy cap. Like everything about them is candy cap like. They even smell like sweet, like a candy cap. But the growing conditions are completely different, and they're not candy caps. But if you didn't know how important it is to be careful and know like the companion plants, then someone might think, oh, I've seen these are candy caps. And then you could get sick. So if you are going to test the waters, like you need to eat like a very little bit first. It's not something that you want to just like dive right into. There's a really awesome mycologist. He's probably like top in his field right now. He's young. He's in his 30s. His name's Alan Rockefeller. You can be friends with him on Facebook. You can follow him on Instagram. He's amazing. And he told me that he takes a little bite of every single mushroom he finds. I mean, he's bioassaying the mushrooms. I'm not saying you should do that, but that's what he does. He's like the top of the line expert. He's my number one go-to for mushroom identification these days. And he's not so a lot of people are familiar with like Paul Stamets. David Aurora wrote an amazing book that's like a classic. He wrote All That the Rain Promises and More. If you live in the Pacific Northwest and you're into mushrooms, you should definitely get that book. It's adorable. It's quirky. It has really good identification for the Pacific Northwest. So that's a top recommendation. But yeah, I love Alan Rockefeller. see, I don't know if he's written any books. Let's see here. If you want to learn about mushrooms specifically in Alaska, Gary A. Larson, he worked for the University of Alaska, Fairbanks. He's an amazing guy. Like, he taught a class in Dutch Harbor that I took, gave us copies of his book for free. He's a super cool guy. So he wrote Gary A. Larson, Larsen. He rocks for Mushroom ID in Alaska. So when you're out there in the woods, just as more safety, be careful for hunters. If you hear gunshots going off, you may want to choose a different area to be foraging in. Don't get stranded out wherever you are. Like, make sure you know exactly where your keys are, bring your phone charged, and don't get lost in the woods. Like, if you are naive and you're just like, I'm foraging, blah, 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 like, this is what I would do, have done, and got scared myself. Like, you want to know where you are. You want to remember how you got into the woods. If the weather changes or whatever, you want to have your phone with you. I know it's like tempting to just be like, I'm a free human, I'm just gonna willy-nilly just return to nature and just roll around in these leaves and like forget, especially if you're microdosing mushrooms while you're out there, which is great. Like, it's a great practice to reconnect with the self and with nature, but you really want to be careful. Like, put your safety first. Things can go wrong quickly and you don't want that. So just be real aware of yourself and your surroundings. If you're with kids, like, make sure that they know the danger of putting random plants and fungi in their mouth. It would be good to like educate yourself in some of the toxic plants in your area. Like up here, for example, cow parsley. It's in the hemlock family. It's phototoxic. If you brush up against it in the sunlight, like, you can really get burnt, like, really bad. Poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, depending where you are. Ticks, depending on where you are. Here we don't have ticks, but the mosquitoes could like really do damage to you if you're not prepared out here. And monkshood plant, super gnarly plant. It's like the most toxic plant ever. Like, a gram of it could kill you 100%. Like, don't make a bouquet out of monkshood. It grows right around here. So, and I do have a picture of it here in the slides coming up. So another thing with safety is like homogenizing your forage. So that's taking like everything that you like, let's say you're doing amanita and you have a bunch of amanita caps that you dried. You don't want to eat like one cap, because the amount of indole, this is nature. Like, for whatever reason, one thing can be a lot stronger than another thing. Or let's say you're harvesting like the milk out of poppies. I'm not saying you should go try to do that, but this happens with poppies. Like, people will harvest one poppy pod and it will be hot and it's like got too much of the opiate in it. So you want to homogenize, especially with the medicinals, homogenize your forage, which means get a lot and put it together and then process it together, whether it's grinding it up, making a tea. It's like using a lot of different ones hopefully from different areas. Sometimes that's not possible, but that comes back to being 100% sure that you know what you foraged. So just like homogenizing is a good way, especially with the medicinals, means putting a lot together and then taking bits of the homogenized brew. Going with a wingman or woman or, human, bringing your dog, making noise out there. And then another safety tip that's really important, that's a lot of times overlooked, is that you really shouldn't be foraging near like toxic waste, especially mushrooms. They are bioremediators, like they absorb toxins out of nature. So you don't want to go foraging near like abandoned airstrips. Mushrooms love to grow there. Near landfills. No, you don't want to eat those mushrooms. They're already pulling up a lot of waste. You don't want to buy mushrooms. I don't buy any mushrooms from Europe. Like, Chernobyl was too recent. Like, maybe I'm like weird or paranoid, but I don't need that in my life. Like, I'm trying to clean myself, not like introduce new problems. And I understand that there's inherent risk just in being alive. Like, we live on the West Coast, Fukushima, blah, blah, blah. The whole ocean's connected. Like, it's of microplastics. I get it. But like, don't forage mushrooms out of an abandoned airstrip. Go into the forest. It's clean in there. It's just better. So just do that instead. Like, you don't want to do it. Like, there was some big amanitas growing right next to my friend's septic tank pipe. Like, no thanks. not doing that one. Heavily trafficked highways, it's just not a good place to forage. So, just be mindful of like what toxins are in the area where you're foraging, and because that's what you're going to take, and that's your medicine. So take it from a clean place. Let's see. So yeah, just like bringing layers, like if it gets cold, bring in a jacket. It's like, I sound like mom, but yeah, bring sun protection. You just don't want to like get yourself super messed up. Careful of stepping on a wasp hive, like be aware of your surroundings. All right. So now let's go on to, let's see here, identification. So we already talked about being 100% sure on the ID. Read books, like read lots of books, join the mushroom foraging groups on Facebook and on Instagram. And there's so many good ones on Facebook. The only thing is that I would say is you got to take people's information on these groups like with a grain of salt. Like they're just another person in their living room Facebooking. Like they could say anything. And so they're not experts necessarily. Like if you stay in the groups over time, you may start to notice people that you're like, oh, that person, like, and being like fact checking what they're saying, like, oh, this is like this. And then you look it up and then you observe it yourself. And then you take the mushroom and you feel that same thing. And you're like, oh, okay, this guy is like consistently like putting out good information. And like when that person comments again, you might be like inclined to trust them more, but you have to be really careful. People say the craziest stuff on there. Like it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. So it's cool because you can like learn a lot from those groups, but just be careful who you listen to on there, because most of them, a lot of them, they really just don't know. Some people are think that they know and they just really don't, and they're spreading information that's just not real about mushrooms, or they don't know. It's not necessarily malicious, but like don't fall into that and like make a bad choice because you didn't do your actual research. So when you want to, like, if you find a mushroom that you want to forage, but you're not like super sure about it, but you have like an instinct about it and you're like seeing it around, you want to know, when you take the pictures of it to, do your research, and there's like apps for this too. I don't use them, but some people do. You can like ID a mushroom with an app, but even the apps are not 100% all the time. So just be super careful. Don't rely on AI to tell you what it is. Like look at the companion plants. Like I've said that before, look at the companion plants. You want to look at the top of the mushroom. You want to look at the gills. Very important to look underneath and look at the gills. It's a big identifying factor. Smelling it. What does it smell like? You want to look at the stipe. You want to look at the surrounding plants and fungi and any other aspect of it. So you want to take like multiple pictures of it, like not just a picture of it at your house, like on the table, but like as it is in nature, and hopefully more than one specimen from the same group. And then, like I said, the underside and the top and the stipe, and that should be like enough for doing like some ID work. Looking at what the mushroom substrate is, like what it's growing on, can also change the medicinal qualities of the mushroom. So I'll just give you a little example. There's a woman that I work with who takes mushrooms medicinally, and she is allergic to birch. And come to find out, she's allergic to some of the mushrooms that grow on the birch tree. And it was like crazy. Like I used birch polypore in some of my blends, and she was taking the birch polypore and she was getting very, very itchy. And so that could be a number of things, because birch polypore is an anti-parasitic, but she told me that that she was like allergic to birch. And I was like, well, maybe you're allergic to like what's in this mushroom that it's pulling from the dying birch tree that it's growing on. And then like some people that like harvest reishi off of hemlock, they don't do well with that reishi. I have not personally had any problems with it, but something to take into consideration, that the substrate can change the medicinal quality. Watch out for cottage names of plants and fungi. Like this is a funny one, because like, here's an example. Like I had planted some scorpion borage in my yard. It's a very invasive plant, but it's good for the bees. It's kind of like a purple flower, and people call it blue tansy. It is not the expensive, super medicinal blue tansy that grows in the Mediterranean that you get the beautiful blue essential oil from that is like hyper expensive and good for like heart connection. It's not the same, but they call it blue tansy also. So that's like a cottage name. Another example is like the cranberry and the currant. It's kind of confusing. Like, is it like a cranberry or currant? It's like the same berry, but it's like currant. Sometimes it's more like a cranberry. Sometimes it's more like a currant. I don't even know at this point if it's the same plant. I'm wondering. So like I forage a lot and I don't even know this very basic thing. So just watch out for cottage names, because people call things like the lion's mane mushroom family, Hericium. It has like a lot of different variations. Like I wouldn't be surprised if some are like hybrids or completely new, but some of them have some different properties to them. Some of them are like growing on oak. Some of them are growing on poplar, like rotting logs and whatnot. And I've had people that like did fine with lion's mane until they ate the one that was wild foraged off an oak tree. And then they didn't do well with that. So it's good to like be really understand that like most of the stuff can't really be put into a box, and just to like go slow with it and to be super careful, and an inquisitive approach, and like approach that uses common sense and like safety first and foremost is going to be probably like have more longevity. Like they say, there's old shamans and there's bold shamans, but there aren't a lot of old, bold shamans. So the same goes with foragers. All right, so tips in the field when you're foraging, especially the mushrooms. When they're fresh, you really don't want to use plastic. If you can use a paper bag or a basket is really much better. I like to get baskets at thrift stores. If you're going out, like my car is constantly packed with like different size, like cardboard boxes, baskets, backpacks, like to separate things. Cause like I'll be getting like Labrador tea and Amanita. I don't want to throw and birch bark. I don't want to get it thrown all into the same bucket and mixed up. Like I want to keep it separated, and I keep it like I said, like in paper bags, cardboard, anything breathable. Plastic isn't breathable, so it's not the best for foraging. So my friend, she puts them, when she forgets her basket, in the hood of her sweatshirt. And she taught her little kid that, and her little kid was out running at school and she found some hedgehog mushrooms and she put them in her little hood. It was so cute. So a knife with a brush is good. That's like a real mushroom foraging apparatus. You could bring like scissors. Depends on what you're going for. So we can talk a little bit about processing and storage. So processing your forage, like I said before, like if you're not really sure what you're doing, you're not going to want to like go take every single thing, mushroom you see, like just like be like have let's say common sense with it, and like be I can't think of the word right now, but just you don't have to like go full bore, like have some, like take your time. You basically want to know what you're going to do with your forage before you take it out of the forest and bring it into your car. Like have a plan. You don't want to just leave it in your car to rot. So are you going to process it fresh? Are you going to dry it? Like, do you have a dryer? Like ovens are really not very good for drying plants and fungi. They just aren't, they're not good for it. Like they don't dry evenly. They don't get to, like the heat isn't like the same all around. There's no good airflow. So, if you're foraging something that you're going to dry, like you need to have a plan. You can get a dryer at Walmart, but look at the dryer. Like, is that mushroom, all those mushrooms, is that really going to fit in your dryer? Like, just plan ahead. Think forwardly. Are you going to freeze it? Like you can freeze the cottonwood buds in the spring. That's a great way. Like, how are you going to preserve this? What are you going to do with it? Berries. Am I going to make jam? I made a bunch of jun, like hard jun with my raspberries this year. Super delicious, but I didn't like put it in the fridge soon enough. And a lot of them have been like super The wild yeasts are just so out of control. Like I should have got the jars with tubes, but I didn't plan ahead. So anyway, you get blunders, you get into situations. I've had like explosions in my kitchen from like fermented stuff. Like, don't be like me, like do better. With fungi, washing your forage, and even with like berries and plants, honestly, I don't recommend that you wash stuff out of the forest. Like, first of all, it takes all the beautiful wild yeasts off your forage. Number two, the water is going to damage your product. Like you're either introducing contaminants to it through the water, or you're washing away the potent indoles, like in the cap of an amanita. Water's shouldn't really be part of your foraging. Like with berries, if you get them all wet before you freeze them, they're going to stick together and the quality is going to be compromised. So just brush them off. Like you can use a brush and you can like shake them off, just dust them off, brush them off, and then do your processing. If you're going to be making tincture, and in the future, like I'm looking at doing some more like education as far as like tincture making, going more into depth with it. But like if you're going to make a tincture, for example, or if you're going to make a medicine, you might want to like chop up your mushroom or your herb to get more surface area before doing that, or making a tea with it. So chopping it up for surface area. When you're drying, you want your dried plants and fungi to be like cracker dry. That means there's no water in it. And then you want to store it. Now you want to use plastic or glass and sealed. Once it's dried, you do want it to be sealed. So at that point, you do want to do plastic or glass. And you can even, you want to keep it out of the light and out of the heat, but that doesn't mean to freeze it. It doesn't mean to put it in the refrigerator, because that can introduce water. So water is not really your friend with this processing. You are going to want to just keep it in like a dry, cool cabinet. That's ideal. And if you do feel like there might still be some moisture in it, you can always put silica dry packs, not the ones for cannabis. Those are like humidifying packs. Like they keep it at a certain humidity. I'm talking about like silica packs. So, okay. And so, yeah, like I said, blunders happen and mistakes are made, but you should learn from them and just don't be, try to be conservative. That's the word. Be conservative with your forage and you'll have less blunders. Yeah, I think this is pretty much so. Talked a little bit about urban foraging. Let's see here. So just a couple things like in Alaska. Oh, I guess we could go over the it would be good to go through the Zoom. Now, I don't want you guys to take this as like a flex, but I do want to show you my I'll show you. Oh geez, how do I do this? Gallery view? No. Geez, how do I do this? I figured it out before, but now I can't really figure it out. Let me see here. Okay, let me see. Meeting. Well, I have a PowerPoint for you guys. Let's see here. Oh. Honestly, let me see here if I can do this. View. Hold on, because I'm so sorry. But I don't want you guys to miss these pictures because it might be good for you to see. Well, here, view. Well, it's kind of sad, but I don't know if I can show you my screen right now because I literally don't know how to do it. I thought I had it figured out, but I don't think so. So in the meantime, do you guys have any questions that you wanted to ask? Was there anything that
I'm extremely overwhelmed with the knowledge that you have, and what I see behind you, and that's Gabby, I had no idea what you've been doing. So I'm all new to this. I'm glad you invited me. Thank you very much.
Thank you
I'll
for
talk to you.
coming. Yeah. Yeah,
I'll
these
talk
are
to
a
you
lot
more.
of this stuff is wild foraged, especially like the mushroom products. I wild forage. My husband helps me a lot with the wild foraging, but I forage a lot of the herbs. But I can't really keep up with the amount of herbs that I need and the variety of herbs that I like to use. So most of the foraging is for mushrooms. And if I was able to actually show you my my screen, I would show you like most of my foraging pictures are they're, let me see. Oh, it's so sad. I don't know how to
I'm not
share this.
sure. I've hosted
But
Zoom meetings before, but I don't know how to get into the background or anything like that for attachments for Zoom meetings.
immersive. I'm afraid to click certain things here, but anyway, yeah, maybe I'll make another video that has like, or maybe I can actually send you guys like a link to it, I think, and you can like have it
Cool.
for yourself, but just to like, it's just basically pictures. So anyway, yeah. If you don't have any more questions, I mean, it's almost been an hour, but I really appreciate you guys coming.
How often do you do this?
How often do I forage?
No, how often do you do the Zoom meeting?
Oh, well, I've done them so I don't know if you guys all know this, but there's two like facets to what I do. One is the chai medicinals, which is at chai medicinals on Instagram. Chai Medicinals is a public facing company and I sell products. Well, I don't, the company belongs to the ministry, but Chai Medicinals interacts with the public. So I do all the herbal and fungal medicinals through Chai Medicinals. But when it comes to like the psychoactive mushrooms, I do that through the church, the ministry. And that's at Church of the Sacred Fruit, at Church of the Sacred Fruit on Instagram. And there's websites for those too as well, which I'll put in the description of the YouTube video that this is creating right now. But the video, the Zoom calls I used to do we do them monthly for the church. So, but this is new. I haven't done. Last week I did a Zoom for like a specific group here in Palmer. That's like a food sustainability group. They're into like self-sufficiency and like food systems. And it had a really good turnout actually, but it was like someone else's group. I was just like a guest speaker and we put that on Zoom. But I have a YouTube channel and the videos that I don't put the ministry Zooms on it because it's like private because people sometimes talk about their private lives and stuff. And I don't want to like put that onto YouTube, but on the YouTube channel, there's a lot of videos, like, most of them are about psychoactive mushrooms. It'll be about like Amanita muscaria, how to process it, like how to take it, what to expect, microdosing with psilocybin. So there's a library there.
You had a YouTube channel. I'll check
Yeah,
it
there's
out.
a YouTube channel. Yep.
All right. I'll
Yep,
subscribe.
it's at Gabby Chai Bird.
Okay.
I'll put it in well, it's at GABICHAI Bird, BIRD. So there's a lot of videos on there.
Cool.
And this video will go there too.
All right.
All right, guys.
Gabby, rather. I was curious, a couple of things. Like, should we not be like out there touching mushrooms? Should that be not part of the process of identification or exploration? Like when you don't know?
No, I think it's okay. Like, honestly, it's fine. Like, you can definitely touch the mushrooms. Like, even if it's a poisonous mushroom, like just touching it, and even if you touch like monkshood, like you wouldn't want to like expose yourself, like make a bouquet of it and put it in your house, for example. There's certain plants, like especially that cow parsley up here. Do you know the cow parsley?
Yeah.
Okay, so that one you don't want to touch it, like especially in the sunshine, because that can make blisters. But like as far as the mushrooms, like you can pretty much touch the mushrooms, but like if you're touching a bunch of mushrooms that you don't know, like you're gonna want to like wash your hands when you get home.
Okay.
Rubber gloves.
Yeah, you could wear gloves, but I think it's okay. You can just like touch them. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's awesome. I'm such like a kid or like an animal, you know. I'm like, oh, I can ride it in. I've had friends be like, whoa, it's gonna touch it. I'm like, oh, maybe. So I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like touching it. Like I said, that guy, Alan Rockefeller, he's out there eating every single mushroom that he finds, even the poisonous ones.
Oh my goodness.
He doesn't eat like the whole thing, but he'll eat like a little bit of it. So
and then I have one more question because I didn't quite catch the name of that Instagram handle. You said it was a weird word. It was like Glory or something. How do you spell that?
Guiroc. Oh yeah, she's amazing. So it's so it's at GWAIROCH. Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna look that up. Thank you so much. And just totally agree with Chris, was it? Yeah. Wow, what a wealth of information. Like, thank you. It was really beautiful. I can't wait to share the link and everything. So I'll look for your, I don't know, however you're gonna send this to us. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, I will send it to you guys. Thank you so much for coming. You guys are awesome. Thanks for your support. Yep. Have an awesome night.
You too.